The warm night air hung heavy over the downtown sports arena. Bright floodlights shone down on the ring, cutting through the darkness like giant spot lamps. A soft breeze carried the smell of popcorn, hot dogs, and sweet cotton candy through the stands. Excited chatter rose and fell, like waves lapping against a shore. Families, friends, and fans had come from all corners of the city for a special charity wrestling show. They wore colorful t-shirts, face paint, and paper hats, waving signs high above their heads. Many had lines drawn on their cheeks in bold letters, Cena, or We Believe. Some small children stood on tiptoe trying to catch a glimpse of the heroes they had only seen on television. Backstage, John Cena tightened the laces on his boots. His muscles rippled beneath his ring gear, but his face held a calm, friendly smile. He took a deep breath and looked around at the narrow hallway lined with lockers and posters. A poster showed him in midair, flying off the ropes to deliver his signature move. Another showed him shaking hands with a group of local kids at last. Year's charity event. He ran a hand through his short hair and felt a flutter of excitement. This night meant more than any ordinary match. Every ticket sold, every concession purchase, and every cheer would go to help local youth centers and after-school programs. He had promised to give his best performance, to entertain and to inspire. A few feet away, Officer Maria Reyes adjusted the strap on her utility belt. She stepped around a rolling cart loaded with bottled water and towels. Her uniform looked crisp and neat, though beads of sweat had begun to form at her forehead. She wiped her brow with a small cloth, grateful for the breeze that drifted through an open door. As part of the city police force, she was in charge of crowd control for this event. She had worked sports events, concerts, and parades before, but this was her first time at a wrestling show. She had watched clips of the sport on her off days, but nothing could prepare her for the roar of this live audience. She checked her radio, tested the volume on her headset, and scanned the corridor. One more time. Her training told her to look for any sign of trouble, a heated argument, someone climbing over a barrier, or a child left alone. She saw none of that yet, but she knew how quickly a calm crowd could turn rowdy. A voice crackled through her radio. All units, remain alert. Let's keep it friendly tonight. Reyes nodded, even though no one could see her. She slipped through the double doors that led directly to the front row of the audience. The sea of people pressed in around her as she took her post near the entrance ramp. The lights were brighter here, and the energy in the air felt electric. She could hear cheers echoing off the walls, faint at first, then louder as she approached. The ring, fans pointed, whispered, and occasionally called out her name as if she were a performer too. She offered a quick smile and kept moving, keeping one hand near her belt, ready for anything. On the opposite side, the ring announcer stood at a small podium. He wore a glittery jacket and held a microphone that caught the stage lights. He seemed relaxed, chatting with a few crew members as he checked his notes. When he spotted Cena stepping into the hallway, he raised an eyebrow and mouthed something. Cena grinned and waved back. The announcer swept an arm toward the ring, as if to remind Cena that it was almost time. Cena nodded, checked his watch, and took a few steps forward. At that moment, the public address system hummed and the lights dimmed. A single spotlight illuminated the announcer. The crowd hushed, leaning forward in anticipation. But just before, the music started. A stray soccer ball rolled across the floor near the ramp. It had bounced in through one of the open doors leading outside. A young boy, no more than 8 or 9, chased after it, his eyes wide with excitement. It worked! Miniature Cena t-shirt and ran too close to the ramp. The ball came to rest at Cena's feet. Cena paused, his face lighting up. He bent down, picked up the ball, and held it up for the boy to see. The boy's grin stretched from ear to ear. He waved and pointed at his own shirt. Cena tapped the ball on the ground like a soccer player, then pointed at the boy's heart. With his thumb, the boy clapped and jumped in place, unable to contain his joy. For a second, the wrestling ring, the bright lights, and the roar of the crowd all faded. Cena and the boy shared a simple moment of cheer. Officer Reyes spotted the boy and the ball. She moved to intercept, intending to keep the boy from wandering too close to performers or ringside equipment. She strode forward, looking down at her steps. She did not want any hazard like a stray ball to cause a fall or a distraction. In her focus, she did not see a slight change in the floor level near the edge of the ramp. Her boot caught on a small cable cover. She leaned forward to keep her balance. In the split second that Reyes stumbled, Cena smiled at the boy and tossed the ball back. The boy caught it midair, whooping with delight. Cena turned to step away so the match could begin. He did not see Reyes's boot raise as she stumbled. The moment her foot left the ground, she tried to correct herself. Her boot whipped upward without intention. In the bright arena lights, that single motion looked slow, as if in a dream. Then, the sharp crack that cut through the crowd's hushed chatter, the tip of her boot struck Cena's face. His head snapped back, and for a heartbeat he stood still, a statue illuminated by spotlights. The audience gasped in confusion. Some thought it was part of the show. Others saw the surprise on Cena's face. The boy at ringside froze, clutching his ball. The announcer's mouth fell open. Reyes's heart skipped a beat as she realized what had happened. Cena blinked, bringing his hand up to touch his jaw. He staggered back a step, pain flickering in his eyes. The boy cried out, the announcer cried out, and a wave of noise rushed back into the arena. For an instant, everything felt chaotic and frightening. Then Cena, showing the strength that made him a champion, straightened his stance. He looked around, as if seeing the lights and crowd for the first time. He rubbed his jaw, then pointed at Reyes, a silent question in his gaze. The match that was about to begin now had an unexpected real twist. Reyes gasped, reaching for her own ankle. Sharp pain radiated up her leg from the sudden twist her body had taken. She bit back a cry, her training telling her to stay calm. But the pain was real, and it shot through her like a bolt of lightning. Her grip on the barrier tightened. Looked up at Cena, ashamed and afraid. The cheers of the crowd turned into murmurs of shock. Someone yelled, "Is he okay?" Another voice shouted, "Call the medics." The announcer dropped his jacket glove and ran toward the ring. Reyes closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them and took a deep breath. She straightened her posture and steadied herself. She needed to make sure Cena was safe first. Would worry about herself. She reached for her radio and spoke into it quietly. "Medical team, please come in," she said, her voice steady despite the pain. "We have an accident at ringside." In that instant, the bright lights, the cheering fans, and the promise of a great match were all forgotten. Two people, one in uniform, one in wrestling gear, stood at the edge of the ring, connected by a mistake neither had meant to make. Both felt the weight of that moment, and both would soon learn that sometimes life's biggest surprises come when you least expect them. The moment the boot struck Cena's jaw, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. A hush fell over the arena, as if time itself had paused. John's eyes widened, and he staggered back, clutching his face. At the same instant, Officer Reyes felt a sharp twist in her ankle. Pain flared from her heel up through her calf, as if a live wire had been set alight beneath her skin. She gasped and leaned against the metal barrier to steady herself, heart pounding in her ears. Around them, the crowd's stunned silence melted into a wave of anxious murmurs and urgent calls for help. Medics burst through the side curtain, their bright jackets cutting through the dim backstage light. One knelt beside Cena, quickly checking his pulse and brushing his hand gently against the bruise blooming on his cheek. Another stooped over Reyes, his face furrowed in concern as he peeled away her shoe to examine the swollen ankle. The two tended to their patient side by side, like a strange mirror image, a famous wrestler and a city officer, both caught off guard by a single, unintended act. The announcer stood frozen at the edge of the ring, microphone still in hand. His voice, when it came, was a tremor that barely rose above the din. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, sounding as though he hardly recognized his own words, "please remain calm. We have a situation at ringside. Medical staff is on the scene." The recorded music cut off, leaving an eerie, quiet broken only by whispers and the soft click of camera phones capturing the surreal moment. Backstage, The lights over the ring dimmed further, shifting the spotlight onto two small medical stretchers. Crew members scrambled to clear a path, pushing aside chairs and cables. The smell of antiseptic mingled with the lingering aroma of popcorn and sweat. Fans craned their necks, trying to see over the sea of heads. Some shielded their children's eyes, thinking they might glimpse something dangerous. Others snapped photos, their fingers trembling. A hush of disbelief washed over the crowd as they realized this was not part of the show. John Cena sat up slowly, wincing as he grabbed the stretcher's metal rail. A medic placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and asked if he could stand. Cena nodded, his jaw stiff, but his spirit undimmed. He lowered himself to his feet, flexing his neck with cautious care. He caught sight of Reyes, who was now seated on the floor, one boot off, the other foot cradled in a medic's hands. Her uniform shirt was damp with sweat, and her face was pale, drawn tight with pain and shame. John took a step toward her, each movement deliberate and calm, as though he sought to ease her embarrassment as much as his own injury. The medic helping Reyes pressed a cold pack against her ankle. She bit her lip and closed her eyes. The pain hadn't lessened, it had simply shifted into a dull, throbbing ache. She thought of the training drills she had run in the academy, of the long nights studying for exams, and of the promise she had made to herself to protect and serve. And yet here she was, wounded in the line of duty by a moment's miscalculation. She drew in a slow, steady breath, determined not to cry out again. Cena crouched next to her, his voice gentle. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern plain in his tone. Despite the pain in his jaw, he kept his eyes soft. Reyes looked up, surprised by his kindness. She had expected anger or scorn. Instead, she saw compassion. She managed a small shake of her head, words stuck in her throat. The medic whispered an instruction to her, and she nodded, trying to smile. Cena glanced skyward, then at the medic beside him. He gave a thumbs-up hand, unspoken, sign that he was fine to continue once the show could safely go on. The audience, sensing the tension ease, began to murmur once more. A few brave cheers rose, as if to reassure both Cena and Reyes that everyone would be okay. The arena lights brightened a notch, and a recorded guitar riff floated through the speakers, gentle and hopeful. It was not the triumphal theme John wore into battle, but it carried reassurance that the night's spirit could be restored. Families clapped softly, and the children giggled, as if turning the page on a scary chapter. Soon the medic stood, preparing to move both injured people away from the ring. Cena offered Reyes his hand. She took it, and he helped her to her feet. They walked side by side, one holding an ice pack to his cheek, the other leaning on John's steady arm toward the back corridor. Behind them, the ring announcer stepped forward once more. He raised the microphone, and his voice, though lower, carried clear determination. "Folks, let's give a round of applause for John Cena and Officer Reyes. They've handled a tough moment with grace. We'll take a brief pause, then get back to our charity match in just a few minutes." As Cena and Reyes disappeared behind the curtain, the crowd erupted. The fans cheered not just for the heroes in the ring, but for the courage shown by both. Men and women in uniform, whether wearing star-studded gear or a badge and belt. The charity event took on new meaning, a reminder that accidents happen, but compassion and respect can heal them.
Yeah.
In the hallway, Cena gently guided Reyes to a small folding chair. He patted her shoulder and said, "You'll need rest. I'll take care of things in the ring." Reyes nodded, grateful beyond words. She knew that tonight's story, the night a cop accidentally kicked John Cena, would become legend. But more importantly, she realized that a simple act of kindness could turn a painful mistake into a moment of real human connection. And for both of them, that truth would matter far more than any spotlight or roar of the crowd. The lights returned to full brightness as the crowd settled back into their seats. The ring stood empty now, the ropes still trembling from the earlier excitement. Backstage, John Cena stood by a folding chair, an ice pack pressed gently to his jaw. His face was calm and his posture relaxed. He listened to the faint hum of the arena speakers and the distant murmur of fans talking among themselves. He knew the show must go on. The charity event waited on no one, But first, he wanted to make sure Officer Reyes was steady.
Reyes sat
On the metal folding chair, one boot off, her foot wrapped in a cold pack. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her uniform shirt was damp from the rush of adrenaline. She inhaled deeply and tried to steady her racing heart. Cena knelt before her, his voice soft. "How's the ankle?" he asked. She bit her lip and shifted her foot. Ankle throbbed, but she nodded. "Painful," she admitted, "but I can walk." He offered her a hand. She took it, and he helped her to her feet. As she stood, she wobbled slightly. Cena steadied her with a gentle arm around her shoulders. "Lean on me if you need to," he said. Reyes managed a small smile. Surprised by his concern, a medic appeared in the hallway, giving them space but ready in case they needed help again. "If you plan to stay for the match, try to keep the pressure off that foot," he advised. Reyes nodded, then straightened her shoulders. She adjusted the ice pack, wrapping it more firmly around her ankle with one gloved hand. Cena patted her shoulder. "I'll cover you here," he said, "while you decide if you want to come back out." Then he stood and brushed imaginary dust off his ring gear. It was time. Reyes watched him walk away, his steps steady despite the bruise. Forming on his cheek, she felt a surge of something she had not expected: pride. This wrestling star cared enough to pause and make sure she was okay. She shook her head as if to clear it and hobbled toward a nearby folding stool. Sat, removed her second boot, and began to gently stretch her foot. With each careful motion, the pain sharpened and then softened into a dull ache. Back in the arena, the ring announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to continue our charity match. Please welcome back John Cena." The fans rose in unison, cheers and applause shaking the arena walls. Some held signs that read, "Cena, Cena, Cena." Others shouted, "Get him, get him." The energy returned, but now it carried something more, an undercurrent of respect for both the wrestler and the officer. Cena stepped through the ropes, adjusting his stance. He tapped the turnbuckle twice and pointed to the crowd as if to say, "Thank you for your patience." Then he turned toward the corner and saluted Officer Reyes, who had hobbled to the front row on crutches provided by arena staff. The crowd roared in approval. For a moment, wrestling theatrics and real life merged in a single powerful image. Hero and protector, side by side. Reyes raised her good hand in response, wincing at the movement but keeping her smile.
us.
She felt warmth spread through her chest. This night, once so ordinary, had become unforgettable.
Us.
The match resumed. Cena's opponent, a tall, muscular wrestler, named the Anvil, entered the ring. He carried himself with practiced bravado, flexing for the crowd. Cena and the Anvil circled each other, the ring mat creaking beneath their weight. Each step, each feint drew cheers and commentary from the audience. But now and then, Cena glanced toward Reyes, offering a thumbs up or a nod between exchanges. The match unfolded like a symphony of athleticism. The Anvil lunged with a clothesline, but Cena ducked and rebounded off the ropes, delivering a shoulder block that rattled the Anvil's ribs. The crowd erupted, chanting Cena's name. Cena smiled, drew energy from their voices, and launched himself across the ring to deliver his signature shoulder tackle. The Anvil staggered but recovered, grabbing Cena in a headlock. The referee counted out the holds, urging the Anvil to break free. Cena twisted, slipped out, and slammed the Anvil's back onto the mat with a sudden back suplex. Every maneuver flowed into the next. Cena climbed the ropes for a high-flying move. He hovered above the ring, the spotlight following him like a halo. Then he leaped, landing feet first into a knee drop that landed with a muffled thump. The Anvil gasped, clutching his ribs. Cena pinned him for a 2 count. The Anvil kicked out at the last millisecond. The audience screamed in delight. Through it all, Reyes felt the match's energy wash over her. Each time Cena executed a move, her pain receded just enough for her to cheer. She found herself leaning forward, enthralled by the spectacle. When Cena executed the 5-knuckle shuffle, she raised both hands and counted with the crowd. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then he covered the Anvil again, and, The referee's hand slapped the mat a third time. The bell chimed. Cena's hand was raised in victory. Fireworks burst overhead, colored sparks falling like rain drenching the ring in celebration. Cena stood tall, his chest heaving with exertion, but his eyes were bright. He bowed to the crowd, sending gratitude their way. Then he turned toward Reyes and saluted, a gesture he saved for his most meaningful moments. The crowd, following his lead, saluted too. For that instant, they honored not only Cena's victory, but the unexpected bond forged that night. Reyes felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She stood, aided by her crutch, and raised her good hand in return. Cena limped toward the ropes and extended his hand. She reached out, and they shook hands firmly, two professionals united by chance and respect. Later, backstage, the charity event's organizer approached them. She wore a blazer fastened at the waist and carried a clipboard. "John Maria," she said, using both their names as if they were equals. "That was magnificent. You two turned an accident into an inspiration. The donations are through the roof tonight." Cena patted the organizer's hand. "All in a night's work," he said with a wry grin that made everyone laugh. Even Reyes felt lighter, sharing in the moment. The organizer handed each of them a certificate of appreciation. Reyes glanced at hers. "For bravery under unexpected circumstances and showing us the true meaning of sportsmanship." She read the words twice, then looked up at Cena. He returned her gaze with a nod that said, "We're a team." Crew members buzzed nearby, packing cables and gathering the lighting gear. The buzz of post-show activity mixed with the distant cheers of fans leaving the arena, their hearts full and their wallets lighter for a good cause. Reyes took a deep breath. She looked down at her cold pack and then at her certificate. She thought of the boy whose soccer ball had set everything in motion. She thought of her training drills and the promise she made to protect. And she thought of the kindness John Cena showed her when she needed it most. She realized that sometimes mistakes reveal our true colors. Cena clapped her on the back. "Let's grab some water," he said. "We've earned it." We smiled and nodded. He handed her a bottle from a nearby cooler. She took a sip, then handed it back. He took one himself, then winced and laughed, pointing at his cheek where the bruise was darkening. She laughed too, the sound light and free. They shared a quiet moment, the hustle of the event fading behind a curtain. The night air outside was cool, and distant horns sounded as traffic cleared. They stood together in the glow of a single overhead light, two unlikely allies bound by an unexpected kick and a shared commitment to do the right thing. For Officer Maria Reyes and John Cena, Part 3 of their story was not about who won the match or who served justice. It was about how a simple accidental kick could break down walls between strangers and forge a connection rooted in empathy. It was about the power to turn pain into purpose. Leave the arena. They carried with them not only memories of the night, but a promise to honor the kindness they had found in each other. The morning sun found Officer Maria Reyes sitting on a bench in the small garden outside the police station. She had slipped off the medal and the glittering jacket John Cena had given her the night before, but she still felt their weight in her heart. The cool air smelled of fresh grass and dew. Birds chirped softly, and the world felt calm after the storm of yesterday's events. Reyes pressed a hand to her ankle. The throbbing pain had eased slightly, but it was still there, a reminder of how one small mistake could change everything. She closed her eyes and replayed the moment in her mind. The stray soccer ball. The boy's excited face, her boot catching the cable cover. The unintentional, unplanned, yet so real. She remembered Cena's face, first stunned, then kind. She recalled the crowd's gasp turning into cheers. As they all recognized something bigger was happening, she felt both shame and pride. Shame for causing pain, pride for how she and Cena had handled it together. A fellow officer, Sergeant Alvarez, came around the building and spotted her on the bench. He carried 2 steaming cups of coffee. He offered one to Reyes, who accepted with a grateful smile. "Thought you might need this," he said in a low voice. She took a sip, letting the warmth spread through her chest. "How are you feeling?" Alvarez asked. "I'm okay," she replied. My ankle hurts, but I can walk. She flexed her foot gently, careful not to push too hard. Alvarez nodded. I watched the replay last night. You handled it like a pro. Cena saluted you, Maria. A lot of people couldn't have done that. Reyes blinked, surprised. She had watched some videos online, but she had not seen Cena salute until just now. She remembered looking up at him, stunned at his respect. I felt like I was dreaming, she admitted. It had all happened so fast. Sergeant Alvarez sat beside her. I know it must have been a shock, but you turned it into something good. The charity match raised more money than ever. Kids at the youth centers are going to have better programs this year because of you and Cena. Reyes looked out at the quiet street. Police cars were parked in neat rows. Citizens would soon stream into the station for paperwork, reports, and help. She thought about the young boy whose ball had rolled into the arena, the children who cheered, and the families, who left feeling inspired. I never meant to hurt him, she said softly. But maybe that moment did some good. Alvarez placed a hand on her shoulder. It did, and it will be remembered. Reyes stood slowly, testing her balance. I should get inside, she said. I have reports to file. Alvarez nodded and rose. Need a ride? He offered, pointing to his patrol car. No, I'll walk, she said. I want to feel each step. Inside the station, Reyes made her way to her desk. A small pile of mail waited for her. She sorted through it, smiling at the usual noticized training schedules, community events, a dinner invitation next week. But at the bottom was something familiar, an envelope bearing the logo of the charity match. She opened it carefully. Inside was a framed photograph. John Cena and Maria Reyes standing side by side in the ring, medals around their necks, arms, linked and raised high. Underneath was a note in Cena's handwriting. For my partner in kindness, keep making a difference. She felt tears well up, but blinked them away. She pinned the photo to her bulletin board next to pictures of her family and her police. Academy graduation. Later that afternoon, Reyes joined a small meeting in the community room of the youth center. The walls were painted bright colors, and children's drawings covered every surface. Local leaders, teachers, and volunteers had gathered to celebrate the record-breaking donations from last night. Reyes walked in on crutches, medals, and jacket, long gone, but her presence lit up the room. The children clapped as she entered, and some reached out to touch her uniform. One little girl, no more than 7, stepped forward with a shy smile. She wore a Cena t-shirt the volunteers had given each child. She held out a small drawing. It showed a police officer and a wrestler standing together under a rainbow, the words "Friends for Good" written above. Reyes knelt down, studied the picture, and whispered, "This is wonderful." She pinned it to her own heart and felt the ache in her ankle fade, replaced by warmth. The meeting began. Speakers praised the funds raised, how they would pay for art supplies, sports equipment, and after-school tutors. Reyes listened, thinking of her own childhood, when a neighbor policeman had taken her to a school fair. She had seen then how a small act of kindness could shape a life. Now she understood how her mistake and Cena's kindness had created a ripple that reached here. After the meeting, Reyes stayed behind to chat with parents and volunteers. She signed a few autographs, please. Badges on paper, sheet sand, posed for photos. A local reporter approached with a microphone. Officer Reyes, the reporter said, "Can you tell us how you feel about last night's events?" Reyes straightened, using her crutch for balance. She looked at the children playing in the corner. She thought about the unlikely friendship that had formed. She looked at the reporter's camera lights. "I feel thankful," she said simply. "Thankful for the chance to help. Thankful for John Cena's kindness. And thankful for this community. We all learn that even when we make mistakes, we can turn them into something good by showing respect and compassion." The reporter nodded and smiled. "Thank you, Officer Reyes, and thank you for serving our city." Before she left, the youth center director handed Reyes a stack of letters from children. "They all wanted to say thanks," she explained. "Read them when you have a moment." Reyes carried the letters outside and sat on a bench near the playground. She opened the first one, a crayon-colored card that said, "Thank you for," Helping us, you are our hero. She read more. You are brave. You make me want to be kind. Now you come to my school and talk. Reyes felt her eyes sting again. She folded the letters carefully and tucked them into her pocket. The next day, Reyes returned to her usual patrol route. She wore her standard uniform, her ankle wrapped snugly. She stopped at a corner store to buy snacks for the kids at the youth center. Fruit snacks, juice boxes, and stickers. The store clerk recognized her. "Hey, Officer Reyes," he said. Smiling, "Heard you were on TV. Good job." She smiled back, paid, and stepped outside into the busy street. Cars and buses rumbled, people hurried, and life went on. But for Reyes, nothing was quite the same. She paused on her patrol, looking up at the sky. She felt connected to something larger, community that watched, cared, and learned. She felt a new confidence, born from the kindness she had both given and received. She felt a promise in her heart to serve with even more compassion, to treat every person, citizen or child or stranger, with respect, and to remember that even small mistakes can teach big lessons. That evening, as the sun set and the city lights blinked on, Reyes stopped by the ring arena again. It was empty now, ropes silent, seats dark. She leaned her crutch against a post and stepped into the ring carefully, feeling the canvas under her boots. She walked the edge, the path she had limped along not long ago. She closed her eyes, remembered the roar of the crowd, Jonathan's calm face, the boy's grin, Cena's salute. Hush. She raised her good hand in salute, and in the quiet, it felt like an echo of cheers. She smiled, then stepped out, closing the door gently behind her. Officer Maria Reyes walked away under the glow of street lamps, her silhouette proud and steady. She carried with her memories of a night that changed her, lessons that would guide her, and a heart that had learned how powerful kindness can be even when it follows a mistake. And above all, she carried the promise to keep making her city safer, kinder, and stronger, one step at a time. The sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink, as Officer Maria Reyes walked back toward her car after a long day of patrol. Her ankles still throbbed gently, a steady reminder of the night she would never forget. In her pocket lay the stack of thank you letters from the children at the youth center. She thought of their bright drawings and the words that called her a hero. A small smile touched her lips. She was a hero, they said, but she knew that title belonged equally to John Cena and to every person who showed kindness when it mattered most. Reyes unlocked her patrol car and placed the letters carefully on the passenger seat. She thought about the framed photograph on her station bulletin aboard her and Cena, arms raised together in the ring. The jacket and medal he had given her still hung in her locker, a warm token of respect. She had never expected such a gift when she was simply doing her job, and that was the lesson. Sometimes it took only one unexpected moment to show people the best in themselves. She slid behind the wheel and started the engine, the low hum of the radio filling the quiet cabin. The DJ was playing a gentle tune, and she listened as she navigated the evening traffic. Cars moved in steady streams, and pedestrians crossed at crosswalks, their steps hurried but calm. She realized how normal it all felt now, even though just days before the arena had erupted in chaos and cheers. Life went on, but a piece of her had changed forever. Later that night, Rhea sat at her kitchen table, the glow of a single lamp shining on her uniform neatly folded beside her notes on the coming week's schedule. She sipped a cup of chamomile tea and read through the letters once more. One card said, "You make me want to be brave." Another read, "You helped us believe in ourselves." She thought of how she had felt that night, ashamed for the mistake, then humbled by Cena's grace, then lifted by the crowd's support. And she knew those children now looked to her for courage. She closed her eyes, took a steady breath, and whispered, "I won't let you down." The next morning, Reyes arrived at the youth center for a scheduled visit. Children gathered in the gym, their faces bright with excitement. She leaned on her crutch as she entered, her uniform crisp, her medal pinned proudly. The center's director introduced her, and Reyes stepped forward. She began with a simple story, how one stray soccer ball had brought her to that arena, how an accident had connected her with a wrestler famous for his strength and kindness, and how, in the end, they had raised record donations for the very program she now served. She spoke slowly, in plain words, hoping each child could remember one part of her journey. As she spoke, a young boy in the front row raised his hand. He asked, "Officer Reyes, were you scared when you kicked John Cena?" The gym went quiet. Reyes looked at him, smiled gently, and nodded. "Yes," she said. "I was scared. I worried I had hurt him badly. But then he looked at me kindly, and I learned that fear can become courage when someone shows you respect." The boy nodded thoughtfully. Across the room, the director wiped away a tear. Reyes continued for another 10 minutes, then invited questions. The children peppered her with questions about police work, about wrestling, and about facing mistakes. Each answer she gave built their trust and their hope. After the talk, Reyes handed out small badges, plastic replicas of her police badge, to any child who wanted one. She knelt down to their level, hooked the badges onto their t-shirts, and laughed as they cheered. One little girl hugged her, crutch for balance, and Reyes hugged her back lightly. The room buzzed with joy. As she left the center, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. She realized that her mistake had become a bridge between herself and the children, between the police and the community, between strangers who cared. That afternoon, Reyes returned to the station for her shift. She joined a meeting with fellow officers sharing what she had learned. She told them about the power of apology, the strength in vulnerability, and the love that kindness can inspire. Her colleagues listened, some nodding, some taking notes. When the meeting ended, her sergeant clapped her on the back. "You taught us more than any training manual," he said. Reyes smiled and simply said, "We all learn from each other." As days turned into weeks, the story of the cop who kicked John Cena became a favorite tale in the station and the city. Reporters called for interviews, and Reyes gracefully declined. Most but agreed to one special feature. In that interview, she spoke of humility, of teamwork, and of how a small mistake could become a beacon of hope when people chose kindness. Her words reached beyond the city, inspiring officers and civilians alike to seek compassion in unexpected moments. One evening, after a long patrol, Reyes returned home to find a package on her doorstep. Inside was a letter from Cena, along with a custom pair of sneakers painted with her badge number and his signature logo. The note read, "Maria, keep stepping forward. Your courage inspires us all. John." She held the sleek shoes in her hands, feeling a warm pride. She placed them next to her uniform, a reminder that unlikely friendships can carry the world's weight in their kindness. On her days off, Reyes visited the youth center regularly. She joined games, read stories, and led safety workshops. Children gathered around her, eager to learn and to share, and she taught them about respect for themselves, for each other, and for the surprises life can bring. She showed them that every person, no matter their role, could make a difference. Months later, the city declared a special day. In honor of the charity match, banners hung across Main Street reading "Kindness in Action Day." Reyes marched in the parade alongside Cena, who had flown in for the celebration. The crowd cheered as they passed, and children waved banners with drawings of a police badge and a wrestling star standing side by side. Reyes felt tears of joy. As she heard chants of "Maria," she rode in a convertible, the breeze brushing her hair, her metal gleaming in the sunlight. At the parade's end, Cena turned to Reyes and said, "Thank you for showing everyone what it means to be a true hero." Reyes smiled, her heart full. "Thank you for helping me see it too," she replied. They shook hands, arms strong and steady, and the crowd gave a roaring ovation. As evening fell and the city's lights twinkled, Reyes returned home once more. She placed her medal, jacket, and sneakers on a shelf above her desk. On the wall beside them hung the framed photograph and the children's drawings. She sat at her desk and wrote in her journal, "Today I learned that kindness can glow brighter than spotlights. It can heal wounds, build bridges, and raise whole communities. I am grateful for every step of this journey." She closed the journal, turned off the lamp, and lay down to rest. Her ankle still ached, but her spirit soared. In the darkness, she whispered a promise to live each day with the same respect and compassion she had learned under the bright lights of that arena. And as she drifted to sleep, she dreamed of children's laughter, of cheering crowds, and of the moment when a simple kick led to a story that would be told for generations.